My name is Gerda Frimberger. I was born in Germany. I left Germany in 1957, immigrated to Canada, came to the United States in 1960. I'm a proud American. I made my citizenship in Bay City in 1969. And I'm getting more and more afraid of what's happening to this great country. I'm old. I probably don't show it, but I'm almost 86 years old. And I lived during the war. And I lived when Hitler did the most horrible things. During the war, you kept your clothes on, you had your suitcase right next to you, and that's how you went to bed. And when the sirens started, your mom would yell, "Laufen!" and you would run to the shelter. And hopefully you prayed that while you went back out of the shelter that your home was still there.
My grandfather, his brother, and various other gentlemen who lived in Hüttenhof had been doing some undermining of Hitler and the army in 1939, as Hitler wanted his German citizens to go back into the motherland to work for Germany. Hitler, his army, entered Hüttenhof. They corralled all of the people up in the village, and they loaded them onto cattle trains. And he sent the villagers to work in a concentration camp in Nuremberg, Germany. My mother was 5 years old, and she had to work in an ammunitions factory, and she had to scrape up the slivers of metal and steel and put it into a bucket. That was her job every day. My mom would tell me much later in life that they had to eat out of a cattle trough while they were in the concentration camp, and about 200 other people had to eat out of this trough. And they were given soup once a day, and the soup contained of whole onions and onion peelings, and they would dip their little wooden spoons in and try and eat. Additionally, she would say that her bedding had come from the used straw from the cattle that was in the community, and it had been soiled with feces and with urine. So my mother's life in Germany didn't parallel Gerda's, but yet we both have stories that have impacted us the duration of our life.
When you're a child and, you hear about Hitler and are you afraid, and, you just wonder. And so when I talked to my mom and asked her about, she said, "Oh, he is just that little guy with a little mustache. He won't do anything." That was the belief of the people in the beginning. The Austrian people, they didn't believe the things that was said, and he's not going to do this to us, and it promises and promises.
It's because Hitler was originally from Austria,
yeah,
and the people couldn't believe that one of theirs would have this type of a mind. Isn't that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and he promised everything so nicely, that people believed it, and they wanted him to succeed, so they didn't believe in the beginning that he would do any harm. Well, by the time they realized what an evil person he was, you couldn't say anything. My mom's best friend across the street, the neighbor, her husband was in the SS already. We didn't know it. Nobody talked about it because you were afraid to talk to your own brother or your own sister, because it was so infiltrated that you were afraid. You didn't know what they believed, and if you said anything against Hitler, there was a knock on the door in an hour, and they hauled you off into a concentration camp. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about my life when I was a little girl. You know, there was no school, or maybe we would go once a week. The bombs were flying all the time. My dad had to go into the, he was drafted, he had to go into the army. So my mom and I, we just shifted for ourselves. This is a picture when I was about 4 years old. So this was hanging in the hallway or in the living room. And this is what's on the back of the picture. Because during Hitler time, you had to have a picture of Hitler or anybody from his government. You had to have a picture of them in your house. And they would come and check. And my parents and my mom, they didn't want to look at this face. So they looked at me, but as soon as, and I don't remember now how they knew, but they had some kind of where the house before, they would let us know they were coming. So you quickly turn the picture around. And this is what we had to do. People here in this country are so spoiled, and I cannot blame them because they don't know any better. They don't know what it means to have nothing to eat. Or you have one slice of bread and you look at it with 4 people. Okay, so how you divide it in 4 pieces? You know, it just, and you try to help each other, which they did. I remember one of my mother's sister's daughter, my cousin, they stood in line, in a bread line, for 3 days. Finally, my cousin was in front of the door and she could smell the yellow cornbread because that's all they made. And, she said, I can get in there and we're gonna get a loaf of bread for the family. Well, she was just stepping into the store and they said, sorry, you gotta come back tomorrow. And all she said was, I wish Hitler had to stay in line like this. She never made it home. Somebody reported her right away. The Gestapo came and she was gone. And this here, I like to read to you. In May of 1919, now remember, 1919, at Düsseldorf in Germany, Allied forces captured a very significant document. The Communist Rules for a Revolution. As you read these rules now, many years later, keep in mind what you are reading and hearing every day in our news media. Number 1, corrupt the youth. Get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness. Isn't that what we're seeing now already here? Get control of all means of publicity. Hereby, get beyond their consciousness. Focus their attention on athletics, sexy books, and plays, and other trivialities.
On average, a boy is 13, a girl 14 when they first see pornography. Our obsession with sex and pornography is $1 billion business, and kids are getting caught up in the backdraft.
divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no real importance.
White privilege describes advantages and benefits people have simply because they are white.
All white people benefit from racism with white privilege.
Destroy the people's faith in their natural leaders by holding the latter up to contempt and ridicule.
Yesterday, Trump tweeted this photo of himself on his private jet eating KFC. There it is, extra crispy and some chicken.
Fragile little snowflake. What a blowhard. He's a blowhard and a snowflake. He's a blowflake is what he is. He should change the hats to say, "Make America Wine Again," Mawa.
Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and ruthlessly as possible.
These are legal provisions. They will be enforced.
By encouraging government extra spending, destroy its credit, produce fear of inflation, and general discontent.
This is the problem of government. Nobody denies the waste, nobody denies the ridiculous projects that are being funded, and yet year in, year out it continues.
Promote unnecessary strikes in vital industries. Boy, haven't we heard of quite a few lately?
The top 3 automakers, yes.
Yep. Encourage civil disorder and foster a lenient and soft attitude on the part of the government towards such disorders. Cause the breakdown of the old moral virtues, modesty, and sobriety. Cause the registration of all firearms on some pretext with a view to confiscating them and leaving the population helpless.
President Biden, addressing the nation last night, argued that the Second Amendment to the Constitution is not about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children and families. The president called for a ban on military-style assault weapons, along with expanded background checks. He also wants to raise the age to buying a gun to 21 years old.
That was written in 1919. And what are we seeing now? Does any of this sound like what is happening in the United States right now? Well, people, the ones that will listen to this, I'm sure you have to shake your head and say yes. And if you say yes, you better wake up. Because if not, you will live in a country that I grew up in when I was a little girl, and that Lisa knows from her mother, the horrible things that happened. So people, please, please wake up. I don't know what we can do at this point. I know our government is corrupt. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. But we people have to stand, and we have to get back to the Lord. He is the one that is in control. And we better get back to him and have him come into our lives, into our schools. And so our children learn what a wonderful world the Lord has given us. Like I told one of my young friends, I said, instead of taking all these drugs, go out in the woods and look at the tree and look at the blue sky and get high on that. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And American people, we have to do it. Because you have to be there and say enough is enough. Hitler controlled the news, just like we're doing in this country now. I get so upset. And if I were a millionaire, I would do it. I want to take my coffee cup or whatever I have in my hand when I listen to the news, and they tell every station says the same thing, the talking points.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And they think we are so stupid. Well, maybe we are, but I'm not. These are all what our government tells our news media to say. And that's what Hitler did. There was one news, and this is what Hitler told, this is what you tell the people. Of course, we didn't have all the media we got now in Germany. We had newspaper and radio, but that was all. And Hitler, this is what Hitler said, this is what you tell the people. And so we better learn, we better listen. And at this point, I tell you what, you cannot trust any TV or anything. You really have to go and check it out for yourself. Because when you really listen, you can see the talking points. And I get very upset that they think I'm so stupid and don't know what's going on. It's just so hard, I think, for people here to understand. But believe me, check your own town. Be aware the people you elect, because there might be the nicest people, they're friends of yours, people even you know, and they have all good intentions. But once they get into power or into their position, there is somebody higher that will dictate. And if you don't do what they want you to do, then you out, or they do something to you. You have to follow what they want you to do. And so, we say the government. Yes, it is the government. But you have to start looking at your town. Start at your hometown and see the people you elect. Because that's where it all starts. That is the most important thing.